So, hope you're all having a great event. I know I've learned quite a lot, and I know food's just been served. So, obviously, everyone's on that food. I'm going to have it after this. So, my name is Rajit Singh. I'll be moderating this event. I do marketing and strategy at a project called AI Network, which is a blockchain-based AI development ecosystem where you can create your own AIs and own all the value they create through the blockchain. So, we've got some great speakers today lined up for you. We're going to be discussing a topic which actually I find quite fascinating myself, which is data ownership in the era of AI. So we'll start with introductions. So can all our panelists give us a very quick intro on yourselves and the projects you're working on, please? Hold on, you good? Cool. Okay, I'll just pass you the mic. Okay, so.
Thank you. Hi there. My name is David Williams. I am the head of the AI lab at Assister. Assister is a company which is creating a network of small language models. You can also think of them as expert language models, and it's all on chain, including credit attribution and incentivization.
Hey, my name is Andrew. I am the global marketing director for Gaia. We are building an open source developer framework to build AI agents and then retain ownership of the knowledge bases that people are creating with AI agents to build a living knowledge network that is more incentive aligned than centralized systems.
Hello, my name is Benson. My background is in international finance, and I'm specialized in data-driven growth strategy. I'm also the co-founder and chief training officer of Nubila, and is a ESG data oracle designed to revolutionize the data collection and utilization. Thank you.
Fantastic. So our first talking point is on different data ownership models. So why is data ownership significant in the age of AI, and what does it mean to you? And how do different data ownership models, like distributed, centralized, impact the development and deployment of AI technologies? So whoever wants to come in on that best.
I'm happy to take that one. So a big narrative around Gaia is that we're positioning ourselves against more traditional centralized AI platforms where the standard mode of operation there is to essentially scrape the internet for all of the data and IP and unique knowledge sources that people have already created, and then put it in a black box and then regurgitate it back out to all of the users that are interacting with that platform. Gaia's model is to give users more ownership over the training data that they are providing to these AI models, and then incentivizing the use of that knowledge base so that they can eventually monetize it and retain the rights over their IP and proprietary data that they're already working with. So we think that's the future. Generally, decentralization when it comes to retaining rights over IP and training data for AI, it seems like a good solution, and definitely want to hear what you guys think too.
Did you want to come in on that, David?
Yeah, sounds great. You know, for me, I think ownership really means two things. One, it means credit assignment and basically reward, right? So if your data is used in some way, you should get some benefit from it. For example, we have a model that is a novel attribution method for RAG. So let's say you contribute some data, and we find that during inferencing time, your data is being pulled out as a vector. You'll get some tokenized reward from that. So in that sense, you know, it's a very clear way to basically receive benefit from data that you've contributed. I think the other part of it is about accountability. You know, when you say, hey, this has your name on it, right? That's like saying, you know, you're accountable for this if something goes wrong with it, right? So you also have a sense of being responsible for quality as well. So yeah, I think those are two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you for those answers. So we're going to move on to blockchain and decentralized technology. So how do blockchain and decentralized technologies change the dynamic of data ownership? And can blockchain systems provide greater control and transparency for data contributors to protect their rights and protect their rights? So Ben, you want to come in on that?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question for me, actually. Yeah, I think the blockchains can, centralized AI and also the service system has a single point of feature that it can be inaccurate and outdated and also can be changed, which is make it unreliable. So For example, the current weather data and like ESG data, all kind of environmental data, they all controlled by a single entity, which is like cannot be used by a high value decision making, like hedge fund, like insurance companies. So what we build is like a decentralized database, Oracle, and we can realize the data, all kinds of ESG data, and we provide it to like high value, like financial services, energy services, and to make it like all on chain and to make more profitable decisions. It's so different, and we also share the revenue with our like contributors. So traditionally, one of the largest, I can't say the name, the largest weather network, they collect data from the users, the contributors, but they do not share any revenue with them. Or maybe they share a little bit fixed revenue to them. But what we do is we can dynamic the different value for weather data for different areas has a different value, right? So we can make it all on chain, and we can make it get more revenue from the demand side, and we can pay out to the users and make the community owned database. Thank you.
I also just think that the only real way to track the usage of a lot of these knowledge bases that people are contributing to AI networks is through a blockchain, right? Like that's the only way to truly guarantee that anytime somebody interacts with like the API end of whatever the system looks like, it's logged somewhere in a trustless way where you can log that and then figure out what the incentive mechanism looks like for like a streaming payout afterwards, which sounds like something you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andrew. And I want to dovetail and sort of echo what you just said and tell you how we're doing it at Assister. So every time someone contributes data to an Assister model, every time a data validation event happens, like someone identifies an error in some data or some misinformation that needs correction, all of that is logged on chain. And we don't actually put the data itself on chain. What we do is we put like a cryptographic signature of it on chain, maybe some metadata like size in bytes and some timestamp or so like this. And also we have a novel score about data quality. So we'll also maybe like decorate that on chain with a quality score as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I can also just say like Gaia's approach is similar. Our draw is that it's an open source framework, so anybody can start building their own AI agents. And then the crypto economics backend is almost like the icing on the cake at the end. And there's going to be staking and slashing mechanisms on certain nodes that people deploy holding those knowledge bases so that it can incentivize proper and accurate data being shared within the ecosystem. So
amazing.
Thank you for those answers. I actually totally agree. I think data ownership through the blockchain is key, absolutely key. So we'll move on to the next one. So how can AI systems be designed to respect data ownership? And what technical solutions can ensure that data contributors maintain control over their information?
That's a great question. So, first, one thing I described was our RAG attribution model. So when we pull out some vectors from a database, we know who those vectors came from and we can remunerate them properly. So I think that really helps. I think I want to talk about the future of that to discuss a little bit of our R&D, which is, let's say you're in a fine-tuning paradigm. What does all this mean with fine-tuning? So when you have a model that's not just as pulling something out of a database and generating off of it, how do you know, like, say, what proportion of the parameters being activated come from some user versus another, right? I think there's a company that's doing that with images called as Tess, if I remember correctly. And what they're doing is they're saying, okay, we can remunerate an artist based on how much of their style was in a generated image. A little bit about what's going on in the R&D in our labs is we're also looking at as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I am but a lowly marketer. I don't fully, I can't give as detailed of an answer to how on the technical end, like, what happens when a vector database is activated, and like where is the function called to like make some payout happen or something like that. But I definitely can say that this is the direction we're moving in, and this seems like a really good step forward. The narrative in general of incentivizing data and finding new things within the technical stack to make this happen is really interesting. And I think we're going to see an explosion of kind of modularity within the ecosystem to figure out where different players fit in. There's a lot of like data availability and data quality AI projects popping up, which I think are going to be really important. And they might just fit in the middle of something like, the AI agent, and then the incentivization mechanism that is kind of on the back end of that. So we're super early. I think a lot of this is going to shake out pretty soon, and excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, so I have an idea with that. Like current for Nubila, current where data is like a traditional like 3G cell phone network, and we cannot do anything actually build on it. So after we have more hyperlocal, like more accurate weather data, and now on chain, we can allow more developers to build apps over the database. So it's like 4G network, 5G network. So we can build everything over it. So it's a way to help the community to build AI data, right?
And add one thing. Yeah, I'd like to add one thing about what we're doing at Assister with regard to ownership of models. We actually have two tokens. We have the Assister token, which is the ASRR, and that's a utility token that people can use to pay for using the language models, and also that are used for basically distributing rewards. We also have a management token. So owning a stake in the model and owning management tokens basically gives you direct ownership of the project and also control. And the way we're doing that is creating mini DAOs. So every model actually has its own mini DAO at Assister, which is a really exciting model, I think, for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you for those answers. So next question is something which I found quite fascinating myself. So it's about data ownership from generative AI. So when AI generates information, data, or results, who owns that data? And any collective insights generated from AI, derived from AI, who owns that data?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that is useful about Gaia is that you can essentially deploy these AI agents on your local machine, so you don't have to worry about security and privacy related to that. And the answers that are generated like within your own node, if you are accessing that, you will eventually be able to set parameters of understanding who is interacting with that data based on the wallet address. And since you've built it with your own knowledge base, the vision for us is really to create like a layer around that to track the wallet addresses that are interacting with that knowledge base plus the LLM to create the model front end, and then give the developers the flexibility to be able to design what the economic side of that looks like for them, and set the parameters of, every single time somebody interacts with this, there's a charge that comes out of a liquidity pool somewhere for like 5 cents per query or something like that. So Guy's trying to put it in the hands of the developers without being too strict about a centralized owner of that data and those answers specifically.
I guess I have a relatively radical answer for this question. Maybe I actually want to turn it on the audience for a second. So in the audience, who uses either ChatGPT, Claude, or Olama like all the time? Yeah, me all the time. Okay, so everybody is doing this all the time. And when you generate some data with it, and you think, and answer me honestly, who owns that data? Just give me your real answer. You do, right? You do, the prompt engineer. You're like, that's mine, right? So I think if we look at how we live today and what our actions are saying, it's the prompt engineer who owns the data. It's bold, but there it is,
Yeah, it's okay for me. It's not been this new bit about generative AI. I don't want like any data generated, weather data generated from the AI.
Actually, I just want to add something here as well, because actually, that question you asked, I would have thought it'd be OpenAI who owns that data. For example, yeah. For example, okay. So I mean, I've learned something new there as well.
I think the issue is that when you're querying something like ChatGPT, you're essentially training the model for OpenAI, right? So you're still contributing information to them to kind of like build out this kind of centralized Borg kind of mentality that's just like scooping up new information from anywhere it can, including the data that is coming in from the queries. And I think that is like, if you zoom out, that's kind of more the macro issue of centralized services like that. So it's one thing to like own the outputs, but it's a different thing to be in control of the inputs and choose what you want to share. So like if you're an enterprise and you have proprietary data that you want to share, and you want to work with an LLM to look at like your financials or your patents or something like that, but you don't really want that information to go out. I don't know if there's a really good, like protocol on the centralized AI side to guarantee that your information isn't being shared somewhere else. And with a decentralized paradigm, that solves for it because you can essentially shape where that data goes and how you control it, and then who has access to it.
So recently, I've started using the model Qwen 2 from Alibaba, which is an amazing model. If anybody out there who has not tried Qwen on Olama, you should definitely try Qwen 2. 7B is amazing, and I use it for all sorts of things every day. And the results that they produce, I put my name on it, I put it in reports, and I submit it, and it's all on my local machine. And like basically I actually put my own name on it as my own work product. So my answer of just like practicing what I preach is like, actually, I own that.
To be fair, that's a good way of doing it. I would do the same thing. I just want to add something here as well, actually. So at AI Network, we're also working on this. So we've created an open source LLM. And in order to interact with the LLM, you have to sign in with your wallet. And each interaction costs a tiny bit of money. It's like 0.001 USD. It's tiny. But all the data that comes out is owned by you as a wallet holder because every piece of data is digitized as an NFT. So also you can create your own LLMs like you can on ChatGPT, and equally each one is digitized as an NFT. So there's no question of ownership of who owns that data. It's you as a wallet holder. And because each piece of data, each LLM, each bot is an NFT, they can be bought, sold, even rented to other people. So essentially, as a user with a wallet on this LLM, on our LLM, on AI Network, you can create your own bots and sell them or rent them, or there's no question as to where that data goes, or rather who owns that data. So yeah, I thought to me, it's a fascinating thing.
Can I add one thing to that, which is, yes, it's amazing to think of it as a token and 0.001 dollars and cents, something like this. But also, you reminded me, I want to talk about like the value of the labor of selection, right? Because a prompt engineer doesn't just blindly copy the output. You actually look through it and you say, I like that, I like that, I like that. Even though the amount of labor is going down, like that's actually still your labor, right? And your biases, right? Your selection bias, your effort, your review, your fact checking, right? Yeah, cool. They have the value.
No, it's true. It does. Yeah, because you're the one putting the work in, essentially, and then that belongs to you as the NFT. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for those answers. So the next question, we're going to move on to a little bit of the legal side of it. So data and IP. So can you comment any legal challenges in this space? For example, the key legal challenges surrounding data ownership in AI. So particularly concerning IP rights. I mean, I don't know if anyone's a legal expert here, so maybe we can just go on the surface here. Anyone want to come in on that first?
Yeah, I mean, I would just kind of go back to what I was saying before around the privacy issues, right? I think it's really important for companies to get right data sharing and what should be public and what should be private. So from my perspective, I think that's the most important thing to figure out. And the tighter we can all get on those security practices, the better off we're all going to be collectively in the space.
I think let's look at one of the famous cases recently, which is OpenAI versus New York Times. New York Times versus OpenAI. the fact that ChatGPT was basically producing verbatim text from the New York Times, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, that's what Google does every time you search Google. But I guess the problem is that it was deemed to be unfair. So what I would do is I would think more about this in terms of fairness, because people tend to sue other people when something, well, getting sued in America is a big compliment. If you haven't gotten sued, you haven't done enough awesome stuff yet. But you know what I mean. But also about fundamental fairness. And so I think that if you look at now what's happening with ChatGPT, where they're partnering with Condé Nast for travel insights, right? That's going to be a powerfully positive relationship and cause no legal drama.
I had another thought, but I lost it. And then not Condé Nast. That's okay.
Yeah. Cool. No? Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. Anything to add, Vincent? Are you good? Okay. So the next one, we move on to data privacy. So does distributed data ensure privacy? And how does it ensure privacy? Or rather, distributed data ownership?
Well, I'll say it doesn't ensure data privacy. By the way, we also have to think about what we mean by the word privacy, right? But let's say privacy means that you can't just go and steal it. Maybe, right? So like sort of theft prevention. In this case, decentralized data actually helps, because if one compartment or one silo of data gets compromised somehow, the blast radius is limited. So it doesn't ensure it in 100% sense, but it definitely reduces the damage that can occur in terms of a compromise. Yeah.
Yeah, actually for the ESG part about the privacy, it's actually decentralized method is much better than like our traditional centralized way, because the data, the content data should be like more private on chain actually. Because the traditional centralized way to collect data and really know who you are and really know what's it like the weather data your place whose place. But for decentralized way, we can get different precision, different users can like run the data together to make it more privacy. It's like
Yeah, just would echo what you guys say. The less centralized points of failure we can have, the better.
Thank you. So our last point, and then we'll move on to questions if anyone have any questions. So our last point is on future trends in AI and data ownership. So do you see or do you expect any emerging trends in data ownership that could shape the future of AI?
Well, okay, so like I was saying with some of our R&D at Assister, I think in the fine-tuning paradigm, we have a long way to go in terms of credit attribution. So I think that will be a real paradigm shift in explainability, when we can say what proportion of the neuronal activations in a model can be attributed to one contributor or another. It's easy in a RAG sense, or it's relatively simple in a RAG sense, but I don't think anybody knows how to do it yet in the sense of like a fine-tuned language model. I think there's one really interesting way to visualize it, which is, I don't know if you have not heard of the paper called Integrated Gradients, also known as automatic attribution. I highly recommend reading this paper, and there's a really cute example where this is about attribution in image recognition. So you can take an image and you can ask a model to classify it, and there's a picture of a cute cat. Of course, it's a cute cat, right? And then you ask this algorithm to show you which parts of the image were the parts that it used to determine if it was a cat, right? So it'll say, okay, so the spiky part on the ears and the little cute nose, that's the cat part of that thing, right? So in a similar sense, if we can take that to something like expert language models and say, based on basically maybe the flow of gradients, this is some proportionality of how much your contribution has helped, so we can reward you fairly. That would be amazing. And I guess there's some level we won't know, like how much utility did the user actually derive from your contribution, but at least we can look at it from the part that we control in the model.
Actually, it's very good for our business because, for the traditional way, only one organization can win from the game, the generator who collect the data. But for now, it's for decentralized way. It's also for DePIN. It's like win-win-win. So users can win from the contribution, and the demand side can win the data for more accurate, like better coverage data from network. They cannot find anymore before. But and also us, we also can win from the game, from two demand and supply side. So it win-win-wins for our business.
So one trend that Gaia is kind of banking on is this idea of specialized agents versus do-it-all agents. So when you think of ChatGPT, it's kind of a jack of all trades at a lot of things. I mean, it's really, really good, obviously, and it knows a lot about a lot of information, but there are certain frontier fields like novel research that's happening in universities or new protocols being developed in crypto to just new things happening within the AI space, and it might not have access directly to those pieces of information. So the idea with Gaia is that you can be a researcher at an institution, spin up your own node on everything that your team is working on there that is like bleeding edge research, and then be able to interact with that and potentially publicize it and bring it out to the students and publications and everybody that is paying attention to that space. So this idea of like a hyper personalized agent that you can customize and train with like the latest data and IP is something that we're really hoping will take off over the next couple of years. And I think there's a huge opportunity there. And that goes for consumer AI applications too. Custom AI agents that are trained on your tweets and your writing and things like that to represent you online could be a really, really big vertical coming up. And a lot of the systems that currently exist that are kind of industry leaders in the space aren't really focusing on that aspect of things too much.
I'd like to add one more thing as well, which is, so at Assister, one thing we are doing right now for our go-to-market strategy is we're releasing 500 ideas for models as a bounty. So we have like a menu of models that we recommend that the community pick up and create. So we're going to issue bounties against these models. And wouldn't that be so awesome? And you can create cover art and personalities for your models and stuff like that. So I think what we're all doing here and in the generative AI space is we're kind of turning the web inside out. We're making it a more fluid place, a more fluent place, a place where we're not just looking at static content, but the content is actually coming to life kind of before our eyes. Stack Overflow is a good example of something which is static, but imagine having a conversational Stack Overflow, which is more fluid. Then how do we do points? How do we issue bounties there? So I think the combination of social factors, gamification, rewards and incentives, and this idea of turning the web into a more fluent place is gonna continue to change the world for the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. I read a paper about this today called The Internet of Intelligence, right? Which is the web is going to change now from a static place to a kind of a fluid, dynamic place. And that should change everything for all of us, right?
Yeah. One other thing I can add there is that I think almost like DePIN abstraction is going to become big soon. So, we had Akash speaking up here earlier, right? And I think they're doing some really awesome things in the decentralized compute space. But I think the more we can kind of like tear down this idea that crypto and blockchain is kind of user facing and you have to interact with it in a specific way that's not super intuitive for people that aren't in the space, the more we can tear down those walls and just have it like be a piece of your tech stack that's kind of running in the background that you don't have to think about. I think it's going to streamline access to a lot of these things. It's like getting access to certain AI agents or compute for the agents instead of setting up everything like explicitly. It's just going to be kind of like a more polished, easy to use Quartal kind of living in the back end that's just melted into everything else, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you for those answers. So I'm just mindful about the time. So I'm going to hand over to the audience now. And so does anyone have any questions for our panelists? Anyone? Yeah, anything at all. But I suppose you've covered the topics pretty well. Like I've learned a lot in real life. Okay, we good? Okay, so thank you so much for listening. This is my second panel. So please give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you.